بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Assalamu alaikum. Today it is Monday, the 31st of May 2021, and our broadcast reflections on the Holy Quran. This is broadcast number 113. And last few days we have been discussing verse 86 of chapter 2, and this is part 4 of that consideration. Just to remind you that the Lahore Ahmadiyya community, which brings you these broadcasts, was created by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian. And he told us that although people say that after the Holy Prophet Muhammad, another prophet will come, but this is untrue. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, the Holy Quran says, was the Khatmun Nabiyyin, and the Holy Prophet explained that by saying that it means La Nabiyya Ba'di. There is no prophet after. So this is why Jesus cannot now come. And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad explained that he was the Mujaddid of the 14th century of Hijrah, and he was given the titles of Messiah and Mahdi by the Holy Prophet Muhammad. But he was not a prophet. He also explained that people start calling each other heretics and kafirs and so on and take this very lightly. But the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam took this extremely seriously, to the extent that he said that if one reciter of the kalima says to another reciter of the kalima, you are not a Muslim, then it is the person saying it who's not a Muslim. This was how strict he was. People also say that some of the prophetic revelation that Hazrat Jibreel brought to the Holy Prophet Muhammad is missing from the Holy Quran. But Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib Rahmatullah Alayhi taught us that nothing is missing from the Holy Quran. All the prophetic revelation that the Holy Prophet received is found in. People also say that some verses of the Holy Quran have been abrogated. But Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad said no verse of the Holy Quran was or ever shall be abrogated. This is absolute nonsense. And people also say that jihad means that you take a sword and you attack people and kill them if they don't embrace Islam. This is not the definition of jihad. The Holy Prophet, in returning from a battle, said that Muslims are returning from the minor jihad, Jihad-e-Asghar, the major jihad, Jihad-e-Akbar. And Jihad-e-Akbar is the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained. Jihad-e-Akbar is a jihad, a struggle against our own negative desires and feelings, anger, jealousy, greed, ignoring the difficulties of our brothers and sisters who might need our help. So let us turn to today's topic. As I said earlier on, we are sharing thoughts about chapter 2 of Baqarah, verse 86, and this is the fourth broadcast in sharing ideas about Al-Baqarah. So let's see what the Holy Quran says. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أولئك الذين اشتروا الحياة الدنيا بالآخرة فلا يخفف عنهم العذاب ولا هم ينقذون. These are they who buy the life of this world for the hereafter. So their chastisement shall not be lightened, nor shall they be helped. I was hoping to discuss two words, yukhaffafu and al-azab, but in the Urdu part of this broadcast that I've just done, we only managed to cover one word. And this brings to mind something that a great Sufi said. I forget his name, but what he said was, if men had had understanding, then God would have revealed only the dot under the bar, and people would have understood. And because people don't have understanding, God had to reveal the whole of the Holy Quran. So let us turn and look at this word. When I say this word, I mean muhaffaf. And it's triliterally. Consonant root is kha, fa, fa. And these three letters appears in the Holy Quran 17 times with 5 different meanings. So they take 5 different forms. 8 times, which is just under a half, it is khaffafa. And 3 times as khaffat, and 3 times again as the verb astakhaffa, and twice as khafif, and once as takhfif. For example, you find chapter 7, verse 9. This is the what's called the first form used as a verb, as will be like. وَمَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ خَسِرُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ بِمَا كَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا يَظْلِمُونَ. So, light. Light in the sense of not the light that comes from the sun, but light in the sense of not being heavy. In chapter 101, which a lot of people learn up because it's short, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ. Again, light in the sense of being not heavy. And then you have وَلَا يَخَفَّفُ عَنْهُمُ الْعَذَابُ وَلَا هُمْ يُنْصَرُونَ. Again, in the sense of something being light. In another form, فَاسْتَخَفَّ قَوْمَهُ فَأَطَاعُوهُ إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا قَوْمًا فَاسِقِينَ. Chapter 43, verse 51. Here it is used in the sense of light truth, which means bluffing, lying. And chapter 2, verse 178. ذَلِكَ تَخْفِيفٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَرَحْمَةٌ, which means a concession. So, let us discuss this. So it means light, and as I explained, light is not in the sense of, the light that comes from the sun, but the opposite of heavy. And in fact, this is not just me explaining it. Many people who write dictionaries and so on explain it in this way, that as opposed to being light, as opposed to being heavy. And the interesting thing is that this can be used both as a compliment and as an insult. For example, you can use a form to mean that someone is a bit dumb, light in understanding. In English, people say he's a lightweight, which may mean, he's not very scholarly, he's not very clever, and all that kind of thing. And if you say to someone light in the sense of, in the sense that, his body weight is light, these days, this may be taken as a compliment. But of course, there was a time when this was taken as an insult, and people used to go to all manner of lengths to become fat. This is why, in a lot of these things, we go back to the Holy Quran to see what the word means. And The point is this, you see, language evolves and changes. But we have to see what the people who received that revelation that came from God to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, how they understood it and interpreted it. What meaning did they assign to it? Because today, the word might have a different meaning. Or as I said to you, and this is quite true, in Victorian times, people would have a cooked breakfast, a heavy cooked breakfast, and then they'll have a full cooked lunch, and then they have a cooked dinner, and they were all fat. Their stomachs would hang above their bellies, and they were very proud of that because being overweight was a compliment because it showed you had a lot of money. And if you were slim or skinny, then that would mean that you haven't got a lot of money and you're poor and so on. So this is why it is important to go back and see how the Holy Prophet Muhammad and his companions understood what a word meant. This is why we say when the Holy Prophet Muhammad was asked, what does Khatamun Nabiyyin mean? Khatam is seal. Yes, this is true. What does it mean? What message does it give you? The Holy Prophet said, La Nabiyya ba'd. So Khatamun Nabiyyin, seal of the prophets. The Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam interpreted that to mean the last of the prophets. The last of the prophets. So that rules out the possibility of any new prophet or any old prophet coming. So anyway, to get back to this word, another application may be that if you take someone's presence lightly, it may mean that you haven't given them their due regard. You sort of could say you sort of insulted them, taken them lightly, and because of this, when people talk about doing something quickly, the same word is used. For example, in walking, your steps are light and they're quick and they're fast. And in Surah Rome, which I think is chapter 30, God says that you shouldn't behave in such a way that those who don't believe consider you to be a lightweight. Lightweight in what sense? One sense could be that you're not firm. You're not firm in your beliefs and in your determination. You're strong in your faith. And so here light is being used as being opposite of being firm in faith. And then we have that chapter 101, Surah Al-Qariya, and I read out a verse from that. And its basic interpretation is that from your whichever side of the balance is heavy, If the side of good deeds is heavy, then that person will spend a pleasant life. And the person whose balance of good deeds is light, then he's asking for trouble. He'll be in difficulty. He'll stand on the edge of the pit. Now, what you have to consider is this, that what God wants from us is effort, sincere effort to do something. We should be seriously struggling to do whatever it is. Improve ourselves, help our fellow man, control our negative feelings and desires. And that's what God is saying, that if the side in which you put love of humanity, love of duty, love of God, that is heavier because of your practical deeds, not just because you pay lip service to it, because of practical deeds that you carry out, then you will have a happy life in this world and in the next. But if that side is light, then you got problems. Now you see, the thing is that in Islam, life doesn't come to an end at any point after starting. Once the seed in the mother's womb is germinated, from then life is now going to continue. It's not going to come to a halt. There are going to be stages when you will pass from, one condition to another. And that condition will be so radically different that, in your previous condition, you can't even imagine. And the example I always give is, the fetus in the womb. And the Holy Quran describes it, that we create a clot and so on and so forth. But the set of conditions under which that clot is existing is totally different and alien to the set of conditions it's going to face once it's born. In mother's womb, it doesn't have to worry about eating, drinking, whatever. Whatever mom eats, that nourishment will get to it. Now, and that is the thing to remember. Whatever the mom eats, that nourishment will get to the fetus. This is why in the West, when women become pregnant, they give up smoking, they give up drinking. In fact, because of the effects of secondary smoking, even the husbands give up uh, um, uh, smoking and so on, so that, sorry, my phone is going. I forgot to switch it off. So, we're talking about giving up things. And this is what happens, that sorry about that. So that What I was saying was, mums gave up smoking and drinking and so on. Why? For the sake of baby's physical condition. And then the baby passes on to a radically different world, where everything is different. And the same thing is going to happen. That baby then grows up, and now that baby is responsible for his own food and drink, spiritual and physical. If that baby eats too much, if that child eats too much chocolate, it's going to rot his teeth, etc. Now, the same thing applies to your spiritual food. And where you end up depends on your efforts in this life. See, sometimes people uh, think that hell or Jahannam is a bad place. But yes, in a way it is. That's where you'll be subjected to a treatment which may be painful. I mean, ask someone who's addicted to nothing more than smoking. Ask them to give it up. Have you noticed what happens during Ramadan when people are breaking fast? Smokers are not worried about eating or drinking. As soon as it's time to break the fast, they rush out for a drag, for some smoke. Now, asking them to give that up is painful for them. They become depressed and they become irritated, and they have to go through all kinds of problems before giving it up. And you can say, while they're attempting to give up smoking, they are in hell. But once they've given up smoking, once their body is purified, they're now in a better situation, a better state, physically speaking. The same thing will happen to us. People say when we die, I say when we move on to the next stage of life. Yes, our connection with this world will come to an end. But then when we move on, it's just like the baby coming out of the fetus. Where we end up depends on what we've been feeding ourselves. To give you one example, I had an abscess of my stomach. I was taken to hospital. They operated, and it was painful. And then I had a big wound, and they had to stitch it up, and that was painful. And healing took time. But after all of that, physically I was better. Physically I was better. So the same thing is going to happen when you move on to the hereafter. That you will go through this treatment. And once you're better, then you will move to a different place where healthy people. Once you're cured, then you come out of hospital and you go home. Now, the other situation, of course, is if you go straight to heaven, heavens. How does that work? Well, I mean, take an example that my maternal grandmother was a school headmistress, and she every day that when she came home after work, she would sit down and she would teach us English and Urdu and Arabic and maths and so on. So at the age of 4, when I got admission in school, the teacher said, but he knows what we're going to cover this year. So this is going to be boring for him. So they said, no, 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 no. First year is too elementary for him. Let's bump him up. And then they said, oh, but second year is also too elementary for him. He knows most of the stuff in second year as well. So we'll put him in third year. And this is what will happen to us in the hereafter. We might end up in year 1 of primary school and then have to work our way through, work our way up to a doctorate or a Nobel Prize or whatever. Or it may be that because of what we've done in this life, God says, no, no, year 1 is too elementary for him. No, 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 year 2 is, he knows that as well. Let's put him in year 3. And this is what happens in terms of marks, profits, and so on. They get 100 out of 100 and they go straight to the top. And then you have companions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. So they probably get 97, 98, something like that. And they go pretty high up as well. And then you have Awliya and Mujaddids. They probably get 94, 95. And they're quite high up as well. And so on. And although we may be in Jannah, people like me are in class 1 if they make it, and they are now struggling to work their way up. The point I'm making is that once created, life is actually a continuous process. It doesn't come to an end. Death is not the end of everything. It is just a stage that you move into. A stage of life, a different stage of life that you move into. And what kind of condition your soul or spirit is depends on the kind of life you spend in this world. And the easy example, as I've already mentioned, is the fact that, if a woman is drunk throughout 9 months of her pregnancy and then she gives birth to a child, the likelihood is that that child is going to be severely affected by mom's habits. So this is no different from that. So the point I want to stress is that Jannah is that hell of those that gets a bad press, that is, not somewhere nice. It's not nice in the sense that what you go through is a lot of pain. But that pain is for your own benefit, to cure you. If you have an abscess, the doctor doesn't subject you to pain, cuts your stomach open and drains the abscess and so on. What's going to happen? It's going to spread throughout your body and kill you. So that pain is beneficial for you. So remember that. I think in the Holy Prophet Muhammad there is a hadith that a day will come when there'll be no one left in hell, and cool breezes will be blowing through it or something like that. So we've had over half an hour. So with the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, I take my leave of you. And we'll meet again tomorrow. And inshallah, tomorrow we'll try and finish um, all the words in this verse of the Holy Quran. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and goodbye.